This year in grade 4, the grade 4 teaching team wanted to do a medieval project so we could connect our curriculum outcomes to something that the students would really be able to engage with and that would motivate them to do their best.
Announcing the Lady Calderia.
We wanted to have an exciting learning adventure that kind of integrated our LA curriculum, our social curriculum, our science curriculum, and our math curriculum into one integrated project. So we divided up the roles, and each teacher was only responsible for 3 roles. Each role had to create a trifold for each village. So the 3 rooms each had all of the roles in them, and they were creating these trifolds so that they could show how they had taken ownership or achieved mastery or shown creativity and innovation. So the driving question for the project was, how has technology changed your role from the medieval times to the present? What we had to do is have the students really analyze what the role was in the medieval times, and then really dig deep and think about what has changed since then. We tried to connect the roles with the curriculum and with something that the kids would be interested in doing. There were lords and ladies who really had to take a leadership role, court jesters, heralds, weavers. Weavers used their symmetry knowledge from the math curriculum to design a tapestry. There were bakers who would use their knowledge of fractions and decimals in cooking. The baker's role was to actually research some recipes of something that could have been made in the medieval times, and they spent a whole day actually going down to the cafeteria with some parents and baking food. So they made bread, they made some treats, they made some cookies, some shortbread, and then they really had to work closely with the merchants so that they could set a fair price. We had engineers who would use wheels and levers to create a catapult. And with the engineers in medieval times, they had to build these things all by hand. The scribes were walking around with their iPads. They were recording the events that were happening throughout the learning adventure, and they were tasked with creating a closing video of sorts. So to keep the medieval theme going throughout the project, we had certain interludes throughout the days.
To take fencing lessons.
We started off with some fencing. We had a bunch of balloon swords, and the kids actually got to work with some grade 11 students and learn fencing techniques. We had bloodletting with some leeches, which were not real leeches, but the kids may have thought they were. And that was enjoyable, kind of to just talk about the difference in medicine. There was a court jester who came in and gave some examples of medieval jokes.
Many sleepless nights.
So the whole project was working towards this big medieval fair that we had at the end, and the students got to dress up and they got to really share what they had learned and to showcase what they were proud of. They could barely contain themselves when they knew that their parents were about to come in and they were getting the chance to share what they had worked so hard on. And they really took ownership of the whole event. It was really hands-off for the teachers throughout the actual medieval fair, because the students ran everything. They worked with the transitions, they were presenting, they were funneling the crowd along, they were getting attention, they were quieting them down. We had a town crier come in, and all the time we were using British accents or medieval accents. They didn't always sound British, just to kind of keep that theme going and to stay in character. What really helped us make this project a success is the structures that we had put in place to help the students feel successful. So we had Gantt charts that allowed them to track their progress and know what they needed to do. We had benchmarks for each role, so they knew exactly what outcomes they were looking at, along with their capacity maps, so they could see the curricular connections that they were learning and where they maybe needed a little bit more support.
Does it work for the cube?
Working in this way was really enjoyable for me because we got to integrate the curriculum in a way that was meaningful for the students and that they were really able to take ownership of. They got to show their parents, they got to show their classmates their learning in a way where they were also able to step back into the medieval ages and kind of play that role.